Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Kate. I'm so glad to have you with me this evening, and I'm very, very happy and honored to welcome as my guest the Reverend Canon Aidan Coe. Welcome, Father Aidan.
Good evening, everyone.
It's so nice to have you with me tonight. You are a legend in your own time. And so beloved by everybody at St. James Church and also St. James School. And so I know that everybody is going to enjoy learning more about your life, your journey, and how you see the world. So I have lots of questions for you. And I'm going to start by just asking you to tell us, where did you grow up?
Oh, I was born in Korea and grew up there. And
Were you
I lived
grew up
I
in
lived there
school
like
or in the countryside?
it was I started I was born in a countryside, but moved to the moved to big city,
Mhm.
Seoul. And I lived Korea half of my life, and here in the United States another half.
Really? Okay, that's good. So it's an even split. And when you were living in Korea for the first half of your life, how did you decide to become a priest?
Well,
Did you always know that you would become a priest?
not really. I happen to be a Christian. My parents were Anglicans, and my grandparents and great grandparents, when the Anglican Church were delivered from by the English missionary. They are USPG missionaries, little bit conservative or little bit high church style, and my ancestor became Anglicans in a small island in Gangwon. Gangwon is a very small island. We call this island is Iona in Korea.
Oh, really?
So my ancestor grew up there. They live there, and I am the fifth generation Anglican Episcopalian.
Oh,
But
wow.
I did not always know that I wanted to be a priest. But the time when I sensed it and felt that this is God's calling was when I was a middle school. It was pretty early, right?
Yeah.
So I was a student leader at church, and I was so impressed by the church leaders, and a few of them were the excellent role models for me, and
Mm-hmm.
I still clearly remember them and their guidance and their prayers and their encouragements.
Were you going to a Christian school?
No, it wasn't Christian school.
But still,
Yeah,
those young people were inspiring you, it sounds like.
yeah, in the church, in the church.
Oh, in the church.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They are all. Most of them are all church leaders.
I
So it was great encouragement to think about a calling and discernment to be just like them. Though I was only like 15-year-old, I knew
oh,
it was their promotion to make as many as church leaders as they could, because it was a time like great awakening in Korea in any Christian denominations.
okay, okay. This would have been maybe in the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah, it is 70s.
Yeah, yeah. A time of the Great Awakening. So I love it. Gyeonghwa Island is the Iona of Korea, and the 1980s is the Great Awakening.
Yeah.
So I want to add a question here. What did your family think when you told them you wanted to become an Anglican priest?
Well, because they were Anglicans, and
Yeah.
I am the first priest among my ancestors from my ancestor to until now. I am the first priest in my household. So
They were happy
they
about it?
they they were happy about it,
Great.
Yeah, so there's no objection or no someone
Wonderful.
say think about it again. It was not like that.
That's great. So, so the first half of your life, I'm thinking in Korea must be where you received your training as a priest, your early ministry and as a priest. When did you come to the United States, and what made you decide to come to the United States?
Well, um, it was uh, my, let's see.
Did somebody invite you to the United States,
Oh,
or?
you know what? That is a quite big matter for my family.
When you left?
Christina and I get married,
Okay.
and shortly after we married, Christina announced me, her parents got petitions in the United States. So, I was not ready at all. And she can't go with them because she married. And she was pretty much very sad, in one hand. And the other hand, she was so hesitating what to do. Yeah, so, I thought it may be a good chance for me to experience outer world and bigger world. So, I rather persuaded her, why don't you go and follow your parents? At that time, as a young woman, whether they married or single, was so hard to separate from their parents and family members. Korea is a small country, and if your parents are within the same country, it should be okay. But sending all family members far up the other country and leaving alone was an easy thing.
Oh,
So
so
she was with, although she was with me all the time. So I of course sensed her emotion and hesitation. So I suggested her that we could follow them, though we should overcome so many challenges in the process.
yeah.
So I was not really prepared for the permanent living outside my homeland, but I thought it would be a good chance to experience. So I simply thought, why not? If my decision was wrong, then I could come back. I could have many chances in my life. I thought my life was so very long then.
Yes,
No.
yes, you were young.
Now I realize life is very short.
Yeah, very short. Yes, I feel you. So we have Christina's parents to thank for you and Christina being here in the United States. That's great. That's wonderful. And so you moved to the United States. It must have taken a lot of courage, to say goodbye to all your friends and your life as you knew it and come here. Did you come immediately to California?
Yes. I in my life in the United States, only 1 year in San Francisco to study, to complete my requirement of the diocese. That was the only period I lived outside of Los Angeles. In my whole life.
Just finished up your formation, right? You were just getting close to being ordained, right?
Yes.
So where were you ordained?
Bishop Borsch ordained me deacon in 1991 and priest in 1992.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, and now I want to know, when did you come to St. James?
It was shortly after my deacon's ordination in 1991. The bishop sent me to St. James.
Oh, the bishop sent you. you.
It
Okay.
had, you know what? It has been his long wish that St. James could actively reach out the fast growing ethnic community. So by his uh, strategic agreement with the rector of St. James, he
Mhm.
sent me here, and the rector at that time, Father Smith, now retired Bishop of Arizona,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
allowed Korean language service to evangelize community
Oh,
members.
that's great. So, so you came to St. James Church when Father Kirk Smith was here to grow the Korean ministry.
Yes,
So you came here to St. James Church.
yes.
Uh,
Actually, both church and school.
oh, really?
Yeah, mhm.
Half and half in those
Half,
days?
half and half.
Okay.
But it was actually full and full. You know what I mean?
It's always full and full, I know. So,
I love the work that time. Yeah.
yeah, that must have been so interesting. So, um, when you arrived at St. James Church, did we already have Korean parishioners here?
Uh,
Were there already Koreans, or did you
you know,
begin?
back then, close to 30 years ago, when I started ministry here at St. James, we had 800 mailing lists at church
Ooh,
and 2,000 memberships.
wow.
I found only a handful of Korean names out of 2,000 names.
Okay.
But you know what? I found they were all school current or graduate parents, not members of the parish. When I contacted them, I realized they were not members, but their names happened to be listed by non-pledged donations.
I
Yeah.
see. So, in other words, you really began the inviting Korean members to the church.
I think it is. Yeah, we didn't start any of the Korean service or any not intentionally reached out to the community.
Mhm,
So I think I may be the first one to
mhm.
started that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's a wonderful
My
thing that
pleasure.
you did for St. James and for everybody, because it's the Korean language members, Korean members of St. James are so important, so important. So that's how our Korean congregation began. Um, and I have another question. What was it like in those early days at St. James?
Oh, my holiday, you mean?
Yeah, in the early days of St. James, one thing I know is there were so many people, right? Because in those days, everybody went to church. In those good old days.
Yeah, I studied Korean service as soon as I arrived.
Mhm,
It had not been full Korean language service, but partially.
mhm,
The idea of the rector at that time
mhm,
was to share the meals on a holy table all together. No one should be missed.
mhm,
So study Korean language service at school classroom at the same time with the major 10:30 service, and
mhm,
lessons and sermons and prayers of the people were all in Korean.
mhm.
After we shared the peace, we traveled to main sanctuary for Eucharist to finish up every Sunday. I passed them. I passed the same model service to Father John Kim, and when I fully involved in the school side about 15 years ago.
Okay, got it. Got it. Although we do things a little bit differently now.
Yeah, we have a separate time and as a one congregation. Uh,
And we come
so
together, the Korean congregation joins on All Saints Day and other major,
yes, yes, mhm. That's a great thing.
yeah. So last year, I had such an amazing opportunity. I got to visit Korea with you and your wife, Christina, and with Headmaster Peter Reinke and one of our school parents hosting us. And everywhere we went in Korea, I could see that you are greatly respected there. So can you tell me a little bit about the relationship between the Church of Korea and the Episcopal Church in the United States? It seemed like a good relationship.
Yes. And you are also highly respected by the people.
Thanks.
Yeah, they did. You know what? The Korea has been a homogeneous country for 5,000 years.
Mhm.
Their cultures for strangers has been always generous, not just me.
Yeah.
You know, one of their typical greeting in mornings, 진지 드셨어요? 진지 드세요, which means did you eat or were you properly fed? It implies the manner of caring,
Yes.
hospitality,
Yes.
and concerns even. So I think that kind of manner might promote to escalate to respecting all human beings. Yeah. So to your main question, for the some kind of relationship with the church, though we haven't established a formal relationship between Episcopal diocese or a diocese in Korea or between churches, we have been so active, led by Suffragan Bishop Diane Bruce. Some companion relationship, you know, since the companion relationship between the dioceses are very strictly guided by the only national church. So we need to meet all the requirements of TEC, and I hope we can do this rather sooner. The Bishop Diane and former Archbishop of Korea, Paul Kim, instead worked very hard for our relationship, and the works are being continued by the clergy and lay people in the Diocese of Los Angeles and a few other TEC dioceses in Korea. The Diocese of New York, you know, New York has supported lay leadership training program to the Diocese of Daejeon for many years. And here's a good example. It recently happened when pandemic was prevalent throughout the state of New York. Diocese of Daejeon in Korea collected the face masks and acrylic shield on the face, other medical equipment to send to them to the Diocese of New York for medical workers.
Oh, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it was, I remember, close to $30,000 worth.
Wow.
So, but between the St. James and churches in Korea, now it is a time to establish more ongoing relationship to share programs.
It seems to me, though, that whenever our friends from Korea visit, they always visit St. James.
Yeah. It's very important things. So we have done this unofficially, but both churches are now ready to think. And for instance, whenever any of our members have chance to visit Korea, they can participate in any spiritual event and service as a special overseas guest, and feel and learn how different their faith practices are, and unique relationship among the members. But don't forget to ask Mother Kate to send an email to the congregation in Korea when you visit there.
I loved getting to preach at the cathedral in Seoul.
Yeah.
That was exciting.
Sorry to interrupt, Mother Kate. The language barrier has been a huge stumbling block. But now, Koreans in Korea are much more globalized.
Yes.
And we have a great electronic apps for a spontaneous translation. So, you know.
No more barriers. No more
barriers.
Yeah.
May I add our school's relationship with the companion school?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. We
Yeah.
should talk about that
The
too.
school, yeah,
So
school has a companion relationship with a public school in small countryside in Korea. We established companion relationship for 14 years,
mhm.
and both the school and teachers and students visit each other and observe and participate in classroom works. And last year I traveled with two fifth grade teachers,
Yes.
Richard and Rob, and to teach companion school children. So they led English classes for a whole week, and
Wonderful.
we were unable to organize the trip this year, this
Yeah.
term, so we missed it.
I have a dream. I have a dream that we can have a trip for St. James Church to visit, a pilgrimage to Korea, to visit the Church of Korea.
Mhm. We can go to Iona.
Yeah. We can go to Iona. We can go to Daejeon. We can go everywhere, right?
Yes.
It would be so wonderful. I would love that. First, we're going to Jerusalem. We're going to Israel, and then the next trip will be Korea. So you have been St. James School chaplain for how many years? 30 years?
I just started 30th year. I
You
completed
started your
29 year yesterday.
That's amazing. Oh, by the way, in the chat, Betsy Anderson says, I remember Aidan when he first arrived, and I think he put St. James on the map. That's a great compliment. I love that. Yeah, I think you put St. James on the map. Certainly, I love it when we have visitors from Korea, from churches in Korea. And also we have young men and women who are studying to become priests, and they do their chaplaincy at Good Sam, right?
Mhm.
We also have
Yeah.
that program.
Yeah, that's a CPE program, Clinical Pastoral Education.
Yeah.
We will resume it soon, though.
Good.
We had that many years. Bishop Bruce has organized that, and Bishop Bruce has allowed us to stay in the Weingart, the guest house, and they had a full-time training for 3 months or 4 months, and they can come back for the next semester or something like that. So, yeah, it's been quite successful.
Such a wonderful idea, and I was so happy when we visited Korea.
Mhm.
I got to see some of the chaplains who had trained here in LA, and they were in Daejeon. Augustine,
Yes.
for example, and somebody else too. Anyway, it was a lot of people said, oh yeah, I was at Good Sam. I studied there. I studied CPE there. So I love that connection too. It's so great. So anyway, but back to St. James School. You've been the chaplain there this is your 30th year. And do you have any students now and whose parents you also taught?
Yeah, we have a few families now, and who were my students. I don't know how many. I don't exactly remember how many were there, but it was like 12. Maybe.
Oh wow!
Yeah, students came back as a parents.
Amazing.
It's an amazing thing.
That must make you feel old.
The Augustine Jones, Dr. Augustine Jones, the medical advisor for school during this difficult time, is one of them. He's one of them.
He was one of your students.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it sounds like St. James School is really a family tradition for a lot of families. Tell me, what does St. James School mean to you? How do you feel about St. James School?
Yes, St. James School and church is like my second home. School parents and parishioners are very nice and respectful and supportive, and especially for the parents after their children's graduation. Whenever I meet them again on a street or in a restaurant in any other place, they always appreciate the time when they were at St. James as a parents, as a student, and are so proud of being alumni. And they acknowledge highly how wonderful it was as a center for young children's education, and remember how St. James community had shaped their spiritual life in their early stage of their life. And I'm so glad to hear from the graduates and alumni parents that they didn't hesitate to say St. James is well-balanced spiritual cradle for themselves and for their children. So it's amazing to hear. It's amazing how it could.
It's such an accomplishment.
I thought this is important. How it would be possible to be recognized with such a beautiful comment.
Yeah.
Community. Community is very important. It's been possible and will be possible to educate youngsters, supported by the community's spiritual power. You remember Jesus once said in Matthew's Gospel, 2 or 3 gather together in my name, I will be with them. It's St. Chrysostom's prayers. So Jesus indicates how he doesn't mind a small number of people, but on the other hand, I interpret it 2 or 3 is a community.
Yes.
It's my philosophy as an ordained minister that communities' collective spiritual power can greatly impact, greatly affect, and shape us, especially young children, before we realize it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be possible without, community members' support and prayers.
But meanwhile, I love what you're saying, that the power of community. But the one consistent thing all the way through is you.
I am a very, very small.
Listen,
small part of the life.
Jim Casey is Jim Casey
is a great man,
and he says, Jim Casey says, I learned from National Association of Episcopal Schools President Dan Heichman that Father Coe is the longest serving Episcopal school chaplain in the country.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Did you know that? So that means,
maybe at the same position, right?
So no, but it's fantastic. I think it helps to explain community because, there's this continuation of the ethos that you represent. I think we're so blessed. We're so blessed that you have given half your life to St. James. I have more questions though. I know, especially in these days, but always, that social justice has been an important value that's a part of St. James Church and very much a part of St. James School. Someone told me that during the LA riots, during the Rodney King era, which is 1992, maybe?
I think it's it was my second year. Yeah, 1992. Yes.
Yeah. And then I heard a story that you gathered together 6th graders and brought them down to the First AME Church to help clean up after the riots. Is that true?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Wow.
But I remember little, but I did that. Yeah.
And I think you did that because social justice is a core value, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So Tell me your dream. What kind of a person do you want a St. James student to grow up to be?
Well, social justice has been one of our top priorities in education. I'm so grateful to work with our head of school, Peter Rinke, who emphasizes more on social justice and lead the community with passion.
Yeah.
This is not just the classroom teaching, but also at chapels and in our daily lives. So we try to find any blind spot within our immediate community and try to reach out so many needy people in our neighbors, supported by you, Rector, Mother Kate. And I'm so grateful to have plenty of chances to teach and practice this with our young student, which is crucial to mark justice in their mind and practice it from their early age.
Yes.
So for the last semester we started when we started a remote learning program, we included this in our chapel prayer permanently. Remind all of us, oh God, remind all of us, especially leaders of the nation, that the value of love, justice, and compassion are the first priority for all people, so that no one wrongfully suffer.
Wow.
So, I have a dream. Those students, our young student, memorize this one.
And that's a great idea.
Mark in their mind, in their head.
That's a great idea. And then they can carry it with them always.
Yes.
Always.
That's why, education, that kind of, with the mind of social justice, that education is so important from early ages.
Absolutely. So here's a question that I've always wondered. What is your favorite thing about being a priest? What do you love about being a priest?
Yeah, I love teaching and leading at the school children service and talk about Jesus, talk about God. That is quite a joy in my life, and also I like mingle with everyone, anyone. So do you know I am?
You're a great mingler.
You might be observed that I am the last person to leave for home from any parties or gatherings. Yeah, it is my great joy to have more chance to meet new people very easily.
Yes.
And, I'm so grateful to have this privilege, but I'm always careful not to hurt any friend I met.
Right, you're a great networker. Like I've seen that with you at conferences. I saw that with you when we were traveling in Korea. I see that in the United States at fundraisers. Everywhere you go, everybody. You're introducing people to each other. I mean, it's incredible. Some people call you the mayor of Koreatown.
Yeah, that you should put unofficial in front of it.
Unofficial mayor of Koreatown.
Yeah, that is my nickname. Bishop Bruce gave.
She call you the unofficial mayor of Koreatown.
Yeah, she studied it.
Oh my God, Jim Casey says it's true. So here's a question in the chat from Stuart Falk. I don't know if you've met him before. He says, how do the demographics of St. James Korean congregants compare with the rest of the membership? Are they younger with more school-age children, or are they older? He's asking about the Korean congregation. What are the demographics? I think they're
Oh.
older, aren't they?
At St. James?
Yes.
Yeah, I think 1/3 is older and 2/3 are younger.
Other ages,
Yeah,
right?
at other ages. Mhm.
And you know, we have many Korean students at St. James School.
Yes, yes.
And we worship every week at All School Chapel. And so I consider them Korean members of St. James as well, right? We're all together in the church. Jim Casey says, I saw Aidan's social grace in Haiti too. Oh, I didn't realize you'd been to Haiti.
Yeah, I think I traveled there about 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Betsy Anderson had a question about how did Anglicans get to Korea?
Oh.
And today, how many Anglicans are there in Korea?
Yeah, Anglican Church is smaller than any other denomination. We count like 50,000 members throughout the peninsula with the 3 dioceses.
Mm-hmm.
The Anglican Church was introduced by the English missionary, USPG missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
So, they inherit that spirit. Mm-hmm. So now, wherever you go, the liturgy, liturgy is the first priority.
Oh,
yeah, liturgically,
okay. Yeah.
It tends to be higher liturgically. So,
I noticed that at the cathedral, certainly.
Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful in that way.
It was 1890, the year 1890. They came to the Korea Peninsula, so it was a bit late than any other denomination like a Presbyterian and Methodist.
Yeah. We are coming close to the end of our interview, but I'm wondering, what is one more thing that you would like us to know about St. James Church and also about St. James School?
Well, our parish members and school parents should know this, how blessed they are to have this wonderful rector, Mother Kay. In my life, this is I'm talking to them rather seriously. In my life at St. James for the last 30 years, I am very confidently addressed that she is the best. I bet everybody knows.
Oh.
Yeah, school has wonderful leader too. It is truly blessed period of St. James community. Please remember, it is another good chance to enrich your spirituality, which is a lifelong priority for everyone. Remember how lucky you are to have such a privilege now. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. And one more question. Any special message for us in this time of COVID? Can you give us any sort of word of comfort?
Yeah, it's quite difficult time for everyone, but it will pass. It will pass. So don't worry about it. Just trust in God and do whatever you need to do. Yeah. Careful, stay healthy, and stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, but before we close, a few more comments from the chat that I want to share. Our good friend, Father Nick, is in the chat. Your colleague, and he says, priest, mentor, and friend, Father Coe is an amazing instrument of grace and love at St. James. So wonderful to learn from such a gracious, loving man. That's what Father Nick says about you.
Oh, that's very nice.
And
Thank you, Father Nick.
yes, we're so blessed to have Father Nick. And Betsy Anderson, as she was listening to your final comments, she said, "I could not agree with you more, Father Coe." And then Jim Buonamani says, "Wasn't the very first choir of St. James tour of Korea back in 1994 or so? Did the choir visit? Wait, the St. James choir visited Korea?"
No, it wasn't. We had a few parish members, including clergy, visited there. I think it was the installation of Archbishop, and it become independent from England.
Oh,
Canterbury, yeah.
okay. I see. And Sarah Jane, she says, "We are blessed and highly favored." That's a favorite. That's a favorite thing that Headmaster Peter Reinke always says. Yeah, but we are blessed and highly favored because you have been at St. James for 30 years. Such a blessing. Thank you for your ministry.
I'm so blessed.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for your ministry. I think you are the most loved person at St. James. And I know that we're all just so grateful. So thank you for this time tonight. Thank you for jumping on the Zoom with all of us. Thank you for your graciousness and generosity and skill as a leader.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Good night. Blessings.
Good night, everyone.
Blessings. Good night, everyone.